Welcome! We are here at Queer Relationships, Queer Joy. It's Melisa and Keely. Hey, Melisa.
Hey, welcome back, everyone.
So we are here today, really excited with Kris Braylon and Sue Braylon. Kris from Self-Care is Sexy podcast. Yay!
Yes.
And she is here with us with her partner. Yay! We're so excited to talk to both of you. So before we begin, we'll have everyone introduce themselves, even though I kind of introduced everybody already.
Absolutely. My name is Melisa. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white, cisgender, female, bisexual, polyamorous person. There's lots of other identifying information, but I think that will suffice for today.
And I am the co-host, Keely Helmick. I am a gender fluid. I think this week I'm going with gender fluid because I'm just not, the non-binary work sometimes, going with gender fluid, queer sex therapist, co-owner of Connective Therapy Collective, white, able-bodied, like just hanging out. So excited to be here. So do y'all want to introduce yourselves for our audience?
Sure. So my name is Kris, and I am also a cis white female. I use she, her pronouns, although I do really subscribe more to sort of a two-spirit definition of my internalized sexuality. I am the host of the podcast Self-Care is Sexy, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm really grateful that you guys considered me and my partner as worthy content for the show.
I'm going to do mine short and sweet. Sue Braylon. I go by she, her, newly out as a gay woman. Feels good.
You're good.
That's
You're
wonderful. We're so excited to have you both. I love, first of all, just the title, Self-Care is Sexy. It's such a wonderful concept. I agree. I think one of the things is just what inspired the creation.
Great question. Yeah, I think it really started out with a close friend of mine at the time. Literally, we were in a Facebook group that was just about self-care that dissolved, and she was coming to the end of her term at PSU in their graphic design program, just wanted to put some content together, create a website. And then I said, well, we should start a podcast, to start talking about it. But I think really how I got involved and why it's kept going is because it really is my big life lesson, right? Like we tend to teach or preach what we need to learn. So just interviewing people and talking with hundreds of different people all across the spectrum about what self-care is to them, what are some of the barriers that they encounter, what are some great ideas that they have, and then also, what happens when they're not able to get the self-care that they need, and how we kind of, can like all collectively come up with solutions and ideas kind of outside of the normal routine, like take a bath, take a walk, get some rest. So it's usually ideas that are generated by our listening community, and it's been going on for 3 years now. So I can't believe I'm still doing it. I thought for sure this was just going to be like a kind of like a one and done situation, but it just people keep finding me and I keep having these fabulous conversations. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so needed. I mean, especially right now, it doesn't surprise me that it's still going, especially sitting in the clinical seat so often, like it's still needed.
I've known Kris for a couple years, but Sue, I just got to meet you today, which is so fun. And it's always weird to me because I've seen you on Facebook. Like I see Kris's posts on Facebook. So I'm like, oh, I know this person. No, I don't actually know you, but I see your face and like just all the cuteness of like the pictures and the adventures that you go on. And so in tying in with self-care, Melisa and I had talked about, I think it was last episode, we talked about autonomy versus connection. And we find that a lot of folks will come in, couples will come in, and individuals talking about codependency.
Yeah.
And you were speaking about your experience of intentionally taking time off from dating. And then from there, starting to get into dating again. And actually, I'm pretty sure when we talked, you weren't dating yet.
No.
So and it was definitely pre-Sue. So like,
Yeah.
would you tell us more about that? And
Yeah, so we were talking earlier, and like I said, Sue and I have complete different life experiences in the queer community. I've been out since I was very young. Sue has just recently come out after being in a relationship with a man for 20 some years. Yeah. And 3 kids and a whole different experience. And my experience with most of my relationships have always been probably from a lack of self-worth, or at least finding the self-worth in the service to others. And that would always create this codependency where I felt like I always had to be doing something for them or focusing all my attention and energy on them in order for that relationship to be successful. And throughout the years, over, a few different pretty intense and connected relationships, I made, the conscious decision to not repeat that pattern again. And in order to figure out what was creating that pattern, I really made the decision to just step away and stop trying to find relationship and just figure out what I was doing to create that pattern. And it took almost 2 years to really solidify what it was that I was doing to create that pattern. And the way that Sue and I got together and the way this relationship is so different is that we really took our time when we first got together. We definitely, well, I mean, in the sense that when we first started dating.
Sue's in the background.
Censor.
Well, I mean, we didn't do the typical meet, sleep together, jump right in. You can actually tell this part, how we met at work, and we got to know each other outside of kind of the regular scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had saw each other at one of those hot flash dances. Yeah, so and at the time I was kind of seeing someone, and I'm not real clued in on what really is flirting in the community, so had no clue what was going on. And then saw her again a month later at a local bar where she goes regularly, but she'd been gone for a while. And she ended up slipping me her business card. Self-care is sexy. And, I got to thinking, how do I want, I don't want to keep meeting people in bars or and having this start out that way when you're drunk and just BSing all the time. And I thought to myself, well, first I stalked her on Facebook and found out she worked at the same place I worked, which is a big company. So I was like, I wonder, maybe she'll be down to do some lunch. And we're at work, 40 hours a week. So most of our time is at work. And I wanted to see how she was most of the time, as opposed to when she lets her hair down at parties, or, real life. Real life is work, right? So we had that a lunch date at work, and man, we just been going to lunch ever since. I mean, I don't know. It's just the communication and just being real right from the get-go, not holding anything back and just being honest and truthful. And I feel like that first lunch, we gained a lot of trust with each other just by letting our hair down and being totally honest with where we come from and what, not all the way back, but just, what's been going on the last few years with relationships, and talking openly about, we don't want to go back there. We don't want that relationship again. We want something that's better and more of a mutual kind of connection.
Yeah, so I think having that foundation and establishing right off the bat that we don't want this to become in service to one another, or one person, losing their identity while feeding the other person. And so the biggest difference that I feel, and what we've done to make it work, is that we each enjoy things separately, and then we enjoy things together. And for the first time in my adult relationship history, there's no guilt or shame tied to, I need some time alone. I need a nap. I want to go to the woods by myself. I want like, she's a big time softball player and wants to go to like tournaments on her own with her teams. There's complete and total, you know, autonomy in those situations. And we both agreed from the get-go, we need that. We need to have our own individual identities, and we need to be able to create our own internal joys and realize that that's not our job. My job is not to make Sue happy.
And that's one thing I'm still kind of working on, because she does like, I've never been with anybody that's like, I need a day, I'm going to go to the woods. And I'm like, well, are you bringing a knife? I mean, what's going on in the woods? You know, like, is there going to be that scary person out there going to get you? I'm worried. But also, I had never had that experience. So
Yeah, we just had to kind of talk through it, you know?
Yeah.
But it did take me doing the work after you and I had that bar stool conversation of being strong enough in myself to go like, I need it. I need it for the benefit of us.
yeah, and it's worked out.
Oh, I love it. And how you just said that, Kris, like, yeah, the thing that we find that I talk about constantly is like reiterating, learning that when we have those boundaries, when we have that autonomy, it actually allows for better connection.
I'm telling you, this year I took a 10-hour drive to Reno by myself, and it was the best drive ever. I mean, it blew my mind, and I realized this is what you get from your trips, you know, and it was amazing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So great.
So wonderful to be able to be in connection while supportive of one another's autonomy. And that was another question that I had related to self-care, is like, how has self-care changed, you know, for each of you being in relationship? And, you know, we've talked about the ways that you move apart and have your alone time, but do you engage in like self-care together, like tandem self-care?
Yeah, we do.
I think, you know, I've been a big fan of like 2020 taught me we don't have time for small talk. So I'm just going to go deep real quick.
Yes.
So like we went and played a softball tournament over the weekend, and it was quite outside my comfort zone. And I, you know, I've been kind of sore and whatever from it. And last night, having a hard time going to bed, she's already in bed, kind of already asleep. And I had the balls to ask her, like, kind of wake her up and say, hey, can you rub some of this ointment on my back? Because I'm hurting. And I just want to bring this up because this has been one of the biggest changers in this relationship that I've seen that I would never do in any of my past relationships, which is ask for what I want without the fear of the repercussions. Because if she wants to say no, she can say no. And I think it's big for our community members who struggle with codependency or who struggle with asking for what they need or setting boundaries, that sometimes it's scary, but you just have to do it. Because when she gets up and is kind of groggy and is like, okay, let me do that for you, there's such a level of intimacy when you get what you ask for, whether it's a rub on the back, or if it's a sexual favor, or if it's, you know, honey, can you go get me this or that? When you have the internal competence to just ask your partner for what it is you want, and you don't fear the rejection because you understand that they have the right to say no, right? Like, so I feel like that kind of self-care embedded within your connection with your partner is the difference between a relationship where you retain your individuality, or you do that symbiotic urge to merge thing that always ends up in divorce and crying and sitting in your office. You know,
After like a year.
right. So, and I think I've tried to really help Sue find her voice and be able to do that same thing, right? Because we've helped each other in so many different ways, because her experience, like I said, we have such different life experiences that we can share, like kind of like, hey, what have you been through? What do you know? And then that's kind of helped me. And then same on that end. So I feel like we get a lot of our own needs met internally, but then we also come together and are like, what, Sue's got to bounce something off me and she just needs a listening ear. And a lot of times I'll ask her, like, are you asking me to problem solve? Am I fixing anything? Am I just listening right now? Like, what do you need from me? And that's helped us both because it's set. Like, if she just needs to vent, great. That's, she gets that out and she vents. So
a lot of the times, like this past year for me has been just, I've had a lot of growth. I stopped drinking, and with that became like, there was a lot of clarity with that. And so sometimes when I'm just talking to her and telling her something like, I think I want to drink, and then I go through what it is, and then I'm like, aha. So that's why I'm thinking those thoughts. It's like I figure it out myself, just saying it out loud, having a springboard, and then after I figure it out, then she's like, yes.
You two are adorable right now. I just have to say, for folks that are listening, this is just like adorable. And Sue, I want to congratulate you on your sobriety of a year. Thank you for sharing that. And that's really a big deal, and something. Don't want to go down this path too much, but I do want to mention, substance use and substance abuse rates with the queer community is so much higher than the cis-hetero community for all the reasons that we don't need to get into today. But just, right. I do like to notate that that's something a lot of experience, and the more that folks are speaking up and talking about stopping drinking and not drinking is really awesome, because that it encourages for the folks that do have struggles or challenges or inhibits certain things for the life that they want. It's great to hear other people talking about it. So thank you for sharing that. Sue, do you have other things? You kind of mentioned how Kris has helped you. I wonder if there's like one or two other things that you think about when you think about your relationship currently with Kris, and the things that brought you joy or been helpful.
Well, she's always helpful. Because our paths, our lives, our history, our filters are so different. I think for both of us, we're able to see what they're talking. Like if we come to each other with problems, I may be able to pick out hers from my history of, oh, this is something here. And she does. She's super good at doing that. Or she'll just, she interviews with Self-Care and Sexy, and she knows all the right lingos and language and words, and she just will ask me a question and make me think. I always feel like I'm in school, but I come up with the right answer usually.
I really do try to listen to you with an objective ear, and not to solve the problem for you, but to, just ask her, how do you feel about that situation? What's really getting at you, or trying to get her to get to her own feelings. It's easy to do that when you're not listening to someone waiting for your turn to talk. And you're just really genuinely listening to a person to hear what they have to say. And even in my professional job, a lot of times people will feel more secure when you parrot back to them what they're saying to you. And sometimes that's all people need, is just that sort of body doubling thing, right? Where you just need someone in the room to hear your story, but really you're the one who's answering all your own questions. That has been a huge part of both of our growth, because I noticed you do it too.
That's communication. That's like NVC, nonviolent communication. That's therapy 101. Just
right.
witnessing each other without personal agenda, like getting in the way.
When in doubt, just repeat what the person said.
Yes.
And then ask, did I get it right?
Right. Is this what you were trying to say? I say that all the time.
So what I'm hearing is.
Dude, you called me out.
Oh, that's great.
Like, we have a lot of fun. And even though COVID, like 2020 was very difficult, I took a pay decrease, the fires, like just so much chaos. And really what has helped me get through it and us be able to get through it is just feeling that strong, the home front's okay. Having the relationship and having our connection be so solid has made traversing this fucking dumpster fire chaos so much easier, so much better. And I'd say we've even done pretty well for ourselves throughout it all.
Aww.
I mean, right? Like if a couple can get through COVID and lockdown and fires and
I attribute that to my COVID puppy.
yeah, she helps.
You say you got a COVID puppy? Oh.
You know, knowing so many relationships have been strained throughout COVID, I'm always interested in hearing what made it work. How have you gotten through this dumpster fire, this pressure cooker for so many?
I was gonna say at first we drank a lot.
It's true. Like one thing that's different about this relationship with Sue, and I think, you know, like jump in anytime if I get this wrong, but she had explained to me that her relationship with her husband prior to discovering her sexuality was that, you know, as the wife, as the mom, she was responsible for a lot, and the division of labor in that situation was pretty uneven. And I'd say it was the same in my situations, but for a different reason. So in the queer community, I found that to be, again, based solely on my incorrect belief that my self-worth was tied up in what I gave other people. So now in this relationship, as I did the work, I went through the CODA program and really the counseling and the meditating and the just crying into the pillow, right? Like all the things came through that and realized I don't have to do that anymore. And so now in this relationship, we both are very aware that those are our tendencies. And so there's this cool thing that's happening in this relationship with Sue that I have never experienced before, which is like an equal division of the labor that makes the house run. Like, you know, because so often I think traditional, like cis, straight, hetero world, the wife is expected to do whatever job she does, in addition to all of the responsibilities of making the house go. Right? I know a lot of women, I know we're like in the 21st century and everybody thinks like, yay, go us, but it's still like that.
Oh,
I have friends, right, that they're still in that weird division of labor, which blows my mind because even the law recognizes a person who stays at home and takes care of the kids. There is literally a financial dollar tied to that service to the household, i.e. alimony, right? So in this situation, it became like, I'll do the cooking and she does the dishes, or she'll sweep up the dog hair and I'll be taking out the trash more, just whatever it is. And we've just sort of gotten into that real equal division of who's going to do what. And the same with financial and like decision making with that. Like, it's not all on her to do the money. It's not all on me to do the money. It's not all on her to plan the vacation. And it's not all me. We talk about those things up front. And, you know, sometimes there's contention or there's disagreement or there's an impasse. But the difference in this relationship without all the codependency or the anxious to please and all of the things that I sort of have brought into most of my relationships has just been like growing the big lady balls and saying what I actually think and feel and want from whatever situation we're working together. And I think that has been, God, the most freeing thing. It's made the relationship 100 times easier. It just flows a lot easier than relationships I've had in the past where I'm like, you know, just frustrated and like, having those thoughts of like, I do everything around here. And the interesting thing is if I find myself in that stinking thinking or that like old shitty habit brain thought, you know, repetitive thing, I'll stop and remind myself that's not really true.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one doing the dishes or taking out the garbage, you know. And it's not hard to look around our house and see the awesome contributions that she does, because the little things, right? Like your water bottle's full, or I asked her to go to the store today to get, like, she's going to go to the store anyway. I was like, oh, could you get me a Diet Coke? I was thinking like a bottle. She brought home like 3 cases, right? Like that kind of shit. It was a sale. Just like those one wasn't going to last you. I know, but still, it's just so, it's so nice. And it's nice to retain my own individuality and still come together and have a great best friend to laugh with and be with and soon marry.
Well, y'all have been so great to talk to and get to hear your story and all this vulnerability. It's beautiful. Thank you.
So inspiring and so full of hope. And I know so many of us, myself included, need it. So thank you. Thank you for sharing.
It is possible. It's totally possible. Ask Keely, before I met Sue, I was like, fuck it, I'm never going to find anyone. I'm going to be an old maid, a cat lady.
I'm rocking the cat lady vibes right now. Perfect. We've discussed this already on the podcast. I'm President Cat Lady. At the moment.
So maybe you're here to inspire Melisa. Like that's it. If it would just inspire Melisa. So we like to end, well, before we wrap up, we have 2 things. We want to make sure and let people know how to get a hold of you, in touch with you, chat with you more. And then we also all go around and share our queer joy of the week. Though for y'all, it could be queer joy in the past month, but Melisa and I try to encourage folks to have, queer joy weekly. So Kris, how can people find you if they want to hear more about this podcast and take a listen?
Yeah, so the podcast is called Self-Care is Sexy. We are on every platform possible: iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podbean. Seriously, just Google us, you'll find it. You can follow us on Instagram at Self-Care is Sexy. We're on Twitter. We're also on Clubhouse, where I sometimes do live Q&As, which is super fun. And my queer joy for the week has been, we played a softball tournament in Las Vegas, and although we lost badly, it was a really great experience with some other very incredible, strong, independent women and a lot of fellowship in our little Airbnb. So that was an incredible experience for me.
Oh, Sue, what about you?
Well, I enjoy traveling for softball, and I've had a couple of really good tournaments.
Yeah.
I would have to say it would be my 1-year pin that I got September 9th for being 1 year sober. That was just, and I'm gonna tear up a little, but it was unexpected to get the coin at the softball tournament, and then my kids were there, and so it just, wow, it just made me feel all the love. It was awesome.
It's amazing.
It was really awesome.
I got chills. I'm serious. I just got chills. Yay. Yeah. Beautiful joy. Beautiful queer joy.
I'm having a hard time not judging my queer joy against that beautiful, joy that was shared.
Well, my queer joy is it's been 3 weeks since my partner, dating person, whatever, confusing, whatever label, they've been gone for 3 weeks, and I'm picking them up in a couple hours. That means I haven't had sex in 3 weeks. So I'm very excited. My queer joy is the anticipation of sex, I guess. Having sex later today. But
yay.
Anticipation is sometimes the best though. I mean, I've been texting and leaving voicemails. So the sex anticipation, queer joy.
Yes.
That's a good transition, Keely, into queer joy. My queer joy, I think, is somewhat related. I to be honest, it's been a rough week for me. I'm moving in 2 days, and while my anxiety has magically been under control, my cats not so much. I can't leave the house right now without someone peeing on my bed. So I was telling Keely it happened twice yesterday, and I was trying to roll with the punches. I promise this is coming to a joyful place, but put the sheets in the wash, went to flip them to the dryer, and promptly realized that my vibrator was in those sheets, which that was going to be the thing that broke me. But it still works.
That's the great joy.
That is a
I,
huge
honest to
queer
God,
joy.
it was such a queer joy. So unofficial endorsement for the Satisfier Pro for people with vulvas in the world. You got to take joy where you can find it.
Exactly. So on that note, thanks you all again for joining us today and having this great chat. And as our listeners know, you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on our website, connectivetherapycollective.com. You can also find us on all the platforms to listen to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy. Thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Thank you.